To
Hello and welcome back to Down the Slope. I'm hosting tonight. However, I'm only joined by another host. So we had a quick conversation there, Harry. How you doing, Harry?
Yeah, mate, I'm good. I'm good. Could if Hibs would actually improve the form a bit, but here we are.
Yeah, well, Happy New Year. I didn't actually see you at Easter Road yesterday as we record. I suppose Happy New Year to all our listeners. It's our first episode in a couple of weeks. I think it's probably worth mentioning that we've not been in hiding. It's just we've had people in various countries and all over the place, and young families and all that. So it's been a bit of a logistical nightmare for us, but we have not been in hiding given the poor form, and we're back now. As Hibs going to the break on the back of a 2-2 draw, Harry, at Easter Road yesterday, with Motherwell. What did you make of the performance as a whole? Um,
I think the word that quite a lot of Hibs fans are probably going to at the moment is frustrating. I think that we've clearly got good players at different areas of the pitch. I think the first half we saw quite a lot of good across the team. Especially that first 30 minutes. I think a lot of us were saying that was some of the best football we've played all season, probably
yeah,
since the Kelly game or the Dundee game at home. Um, so yeah, it was as soon as they scored though, you just knew you weren't winning the game. It was a bit brutal.
yeah. I think for me, I was pretty comfortable in the fact I felt it was probably the best we've played all season up to the point that Motherwell equalised. I thought we were really good value for being ahead in the game. Probably should have been a couple of goals up at that point. I felt like had we scored in the first 10 minutes, that would have been more than valid. I thought we started the game really strongly. We were getting at Motherwell. I thought it was interesting the way Motherwell set up actually. I'm going to come into that a little bit because I do think it sort of played into our hands a little bit in the first half. But really, yeah, really disappointing to come away with only a point in a game. Oh, it's a game that you need to win, really. If you've got sort of any intentions of finishing higher up the league table than where we are currently, and it was a performance, well, two-thirds of a performance that probably just was summed up our December. Maybe that's maybe I don't know if that's maybe just a little bit too harsh, but I
I
don't
think
think.
anytime a team comes to avoid defeat and they end
Yeah,
up scoring from two set pieces and end up almost taking 3 points, it's just a sign of a team that can't put teams away. Motherwell
yeah,
did not come to Easter Road. They did not. It didn't look to me like they discussed winning the game. It was let's see how far up the pitch we can get, and if we get the ball in the box, let's take our chance when it comes. Because apart
yeah.
from
Well,
that, we didn't look threatened at all.
yeah. I didn't really know what to expect from Motherwell. Obviously, they just won their first game in 15 games or something like that. I think against Livingston at the weekend. We had the benefit of not playing, having rearranged the St Johnstone game to a couple of weeks earlier. They lined up in that game with a front three. So I thought, well, they've won. They might come and have a go. I don't know. Maybe they would have seen it as a free hit. Coming to Easter Road, Motherwell have a pretty bad record at Easter Road as well. I think one of the contributors on the Terrace podcast, he sort of references it as his least favourite away game because they never seem to get points at Easter Road. But they set up in a 5-4-1, which I thought from the very first minute, it meant that we could get out incredibly easy. It felt for me that they were probably the only team I think has come to Easter Road this season and hadn't really at least tried to push their strikers onto our centre backs and onto Dylan Levitt and Joe Newell when we were playing out from the back, and it meant we were getting up the park incredibly easy. We were able to exploit weaknesses in their team. They had Blair Spittle playing as a wing back, a player that has a lot of quality, I suppose, at this level, but definitely as a wing back. And Tavares on the left hand side was having a lot of joy, and Yuan on the other side as well, albeit probably still incredibly wasteful until his goal. But it definitely felt early doors, Harry, that Hibs were on to a good day, and that we probably should have been scoring multiple goals in the first half.
Yeah, I think it was the same as the Hearts game though. I just don't think that other teams in the league respect Tavares that much, to be honest. I think that the ball down the wing to him was on constantly. And I think in the first half we just kept feeding him the ball. I think at times Abita probably should have tried to drive down the wing more. We've seen before that he can take players on. At one point in the second half he tried to go on Amazing and took an elephant touch that nearly resulted in a Motherwell goal. But I just think that we should have just kept feeding Tavares until his legs ran out because he still looked fresh come the second half. But I think he only got the ball 3 times in the second half compared to about the 11 times we got it in the first half. Um, and for me, I thought the first 30 minutes, I thought Levitt was really good. I thought that he kept picking up the ball in good positions, actually facing the opposition goal and trying to find forward passes. And then as soon as they scored, Levitt and Yeo just went massively downhill. I just think both of them cowered out the game, and you essentially had no midfield after that. It was just brutal.
I know people game of two halves and stuff. If we're doing game reviews and stuff, we'll usually talk first half and second half. But it really does feel like it was a 30-minute game and a 60-minute game. I thought Hibs played with an intensity and a purpose in our passing and going forward. And in that first half hour, that I don't think we've seen since the early games under Montgomery, where there has definitely been a shift in the last month or so for whatever reason. Probably for the benefit of defensive stability that, albeit still looks suspect at times, but I think it's very clear that we are defending generally better within games, albeit the goals that we conceded at the weekend would perhaps make you think otherwise. However, like you say, for me, the biggest worry is that Motherwell score and you go from playing this passing, high tempo game to pedestrian, lacking ideas. It was like, oh, for that 10 minutes probably between our goal and their goal, we looked like world beaters. We're knocking it about. But Tavares is taking them on 3 or 4 times on the left hand side. Don't know how they avoided booking after booking after booking, to be honest. But and then just the moment Motherwell score, I don't even really remember us creating another chance in the rest of the game at home against a team that have won like 1 in 15 games.
I think the thing for me is like the way to pull out defenses is to run at them. Like you give it to your creative players or you get players moving. I just felt as like the whole team just lost so much confidence and just went completely static as soon as we conceded that goal. Because like the reason we scored the goals, Joe Newell ran at someone, got tackled, but it brought the left back in. That meant that Yuan got in behind him. He skinned one player and put it in the back of the net. If Newell hadn't run at him, there wouldn't have been the space for Yuan to get in behind. And then the second half, first chance we had of the second half was when Molotnikov ran at their centre back. He got tackled. Lewis Stevenson hit the bar. Like the 2 times any of our midfielders ran at a player, we got chances out of it. Like I don't understand why Levitt and Yule aren't being brave. It's literally just being so passive in games and not giving anybody chances because Levitt and Vente and Deutsch again completely anonymous. I thought the two of them in an attacking sense both were as well not playing. They didn't do anything. I'm not saying that Vente had a bad game. I'm not saying Deutsch had a bad game. I'm saying neither of them done anything on the ball in the attacking area where you need them to actually be impactful. There was one point where Vente bloody ran the length of the pitch to make a tackle, and it's like that's all well and good, but the midfielder should be making that tackle. He should have faith in that, and he should be getting forward. We just need some form of like. So many of these players just need to give the head a shake. They're off to Dubai for a sunny holiday. Like, let's just try and get focused on what we actually need to do here because there's so many players lacking. I know we're going to come on to Montgomery in a bit, but the players themselves as well need to actually step up and take ownership and actually try and drive this team forward as opposed to just being sad because they don't get to do whatever they want.
Yeah, and I think you can only point the finger at the manager so much. The manager sets the team up in a way that is effective for 30 minutes. We have one lapse in concentration from a 16-year-old. The game goes back to 1-1. If I'm the manager, I'm going to just keep going. Just keep doing, just shrug it off, keep going what you're doing. Had we kept playing the way we are, I would have probably expected us to maybe even go ahead again in the 10 minutes before half time. Like we were that much on top in that first half, but the confidence just drained out of them. You mentioned Eliu there. Obviously, he was the standout performer, albeit in sort of typical Eliu fashion, where he really frustrates out with that. I'm a huge fan. For me, he should be in the starting 11 every game. I think he's by far and away our biggest threat and probably our best player. But of the other 3 players that came in, Christian Deutsch, Paul Hanlon, Rory Whittaker, any of them sort of said to you that they deserve to be in the starting 11 coming out the break, or would you expect those who have dropped out to come back in?
I think Hanlon had a really good game. Obviously, that when you look back at the second goal, he needs to do better. I think someone needs to give him a shout to just head the ball over the bar, give away a corner, and try and reset. Because as soon as he's headed it to where 2 Motherwell players are, so they've got the time to actually put it onto another one. Like it's one of those ones that in the moment he's just tried to get rid of the ball, which is fine, but that looks bad. But apart from that, I thought Hanlon had another good game. I think performance on performance. I think Hanlon's been one of our better players this season. I know it sounds weird because everybody's getting on the defenders' backs, but I don't think Hanlon's really had a bad game. Whittaker, I felt sorry for. He's being targeted. It makes sense. If Hibs were coming up against a 16-year-old defender, I would expect us to put 2 men on them at all times.
Well, we did not do that at St Johnstone, where they
Yeah,
are.
for some reason. But yeah, I think that I, you could see as the game wore on when he made a couple of mistakes that kind of just stockpiled. Again, I'm not like going to slate Montgomery for playing him. I think he was probably the best player that most of us would have started in that position that was available. And I'm not going to blame him. He's a young kid with a lot to learn. From my perspective, it's just one of those things. It's a lot of learning, so hopefully they can nurture into him. One player that I would point to that I think kind of got ruined at Hibs being played too much when he was young was David Witherspoon. I think that he just kind of came into the team and then he just became a starter, and I think that was completely the wrong thing. So I think for games like this, hopefully we get some form of cover for right back. Maybe play Whitaker at forward, but I don't want Whitaker starting against Rangers. I don't think that'd be a good thing.
No, I know we've spoke about Chris Cadden enough, but I would expect
Yeah.
if he finds a level of fitness before the next competitive game. I don't know if they'll have any games out in Dubai or that. I don't think anything's actually been confirmed about that, has it? In terms of
All I seen the other day was I can't even mind if it might have been evening news. Someone said they were going
yeah.
to Dubai.
But yeah, no, I think Chris Cadden would come in whilst Miller's away. Another player that obviously has his limitations in the position, but definitely certainly would offer more going forward. I think Whitaker's done for his age and that he's done superbly well in the cameos that he has. I think, but you can tell that he does lack a little bit of confidence, I think, at times on the ball and stuff. The ball, I think, when the ball comes out to him, moves can falter. You know, I think he rarely will do anything first touch. He'll take a touch, come back inside, and that's, I think, you've got to accept that that will happen. You know, like he's probably, I don't know if it's even 10 appearances he's made yet. I don't know. Paul Hanlon for me was probably out. Ellie Yan would probably get man of the match, wouldn't he, for the 2 goals? But other than that, I thought Paul Hanlon had a really, really good game. I think it's quite harsh probably to criticise him for the second goal. I think it's a fine header out. You know, like he's stretching, dealing with it. He doesn't know what's behind him, and he probably feels like he has to make that header. He gets it out towards the edge of the box. There's then what 3 headers after his and ends up in the back of the net. I think there's got to be more questions asked of those that could have been dealing with it better after that. But yeah, an incredibly frustrating day. Um, Capped off, obviously Harry Yuan does get an equaliser at the end of the game, but I would guess you were much like myself coming away feeling defeated. I actually said as I was walking out of the stadium, I was like, "How have we lost to this team twice?" And like, just totally, I was like, "Oh no, wait, fuck, we actually drew that game."
No, I think I probably wasn't the only one. When we scored, I didn't celebrate. I was just shouting, "Get the ball back!" And then I know Jan's excited; he's got his second goal, and then the youngsters are excited that we scored an equaliser in the last minute. But I was just like, "Lads, get the ball back and try and get a winner here." Because you've got 5 minutes added on, we've scored with a minute, and then you've cut a minute out of that because the referee's not going to add on extra time for him celebrating, is he?
No,
So that was a bit frustrating. One thing I think does need to be called out. I think Joe Newell for the second goal. He has the opportunity to bring the boy down in their half. Probably actually avoids the booking if he does. He doesn't. They've got numbers forward. Levitt has to bring him down for the free kick, in my opinion. I think that was a good foul from Levitt. I don't blame him for it. But Joe Newell, like that's for me again. You need to be a leader in the team and make decisions. He let the boy past him essentially because he didn't want to give away a free kick or get the foul. And I just that really, really frustrated me. I don't know if you remember that moment, but I remember being angry and thinking if this goes in, it's his fault. So I just wanted to call that out because it's been annoying me since. So I took it off the chest.
I think there was a few occasions, yes, but I don't necessarily know if it's a lack of commitment or a lack of desire or whatever. But there was definitely a few occasions yesterday that Joe Newell 50-50s that he normally comes out the other side of with the ball. Didn't, and really didn't sort of didn't even wasn't even close. Like that. Didn't I think that sort of summed it up yesterday. And the goal comes from that, but again, just defend better after it.
Yeah,
Levitt probably does the right thing, and in terms of bringing the guy down when he does, but again, he's not. It's not as if he's running through on goal. You could probably, you could maybe just match him down towards the corner, but no, an incredibly frustrating day that ends or hopefully ends anyway, at least for the time being, an incredibly frustrating run of fixtures, Harry. We have obviously just taken 4 points there in a run of 4 games that we have played 3 of the worst teams in the league, and Hearts obviously we were talking about like runs of fixtures and stuff a while ago, to see how many points we would take out of it, and how much a killer do you think the last couple of weeks has been in terms of momentum and feel good factor and going into the second half of the season?
I know everything's always easier in hindsight, but I think they've probably got the St Johnstone game wrong. Obviously, as soon as you got beat it the last time, but I thought after the St Johnstone away, we just felt that we needed something to give us an uplift before the derby. Obviously, the county game, we saw Aberdeen absolutely pump them yesterday. That felt like the perfect opportunity to kind of reset and actually get a win against a poor team. And then instead, your next game after your worst performance of the season's Hearts, I actually didn't think we were overly terrible against Hearts. We just weren't good. Um, and then Motherwell, I thought we came out the gates really strong, and then we just fell flat on our fate. We've had this mentality that as soon as we concede goals, we crumble, and it's been the case for years. The start of last season with Lee Johnson, it seemed to go away a bit. We were coming back quite late in games, but halfway through the season again, we just started collapsing, and it just seems to have seeped through to the season. Every single time we concede, the heads go down, and it's just so annoying. Just play 90 minutes of football. I just want to see Hibs put 90 minutes of football together because it's not happened for ages, and it's just getting me down.
Yeah, well, so we've seen 16 league games for Nick Montgomery, and two cup games obviously in there as well. In the league, we've won five of those 16, drawn seven and lost four. Obviously, a win and a defeat in the in the cup. So what so far Nick Montgomery's tenure, highlights, lowlights, and what's your general feeling? Because I know everyone, it's a strange one when you have a new manager that early in the season because he hasn't had a window, but he has had a lot of games.
Mm. And Greg's going to roast me if he listens back because I think the pre-season is meaningful. I think that that's your time where you get to assess your squad. You get to kind of be like, here's the way we're playing the season, and you'll design training to literally suit what you're going to set up in pre-season carry into the season. So we've had Lee Johnson there, who's obviously trained him a certain way, and then literally 3 league games into the season, you've dropped all of that. That's irrelevant now. We've got a new manager who wants to play a very specific way, and realistically, a lot of players that don't currently fit the mold for what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
So it was a terrible time to come in. And then he did have a pretty rough batch of form that he done really well in. Hits December, we're thinking, although we've got a bunch of away games coming up, we've got a good chance of getting a good few results here. And it's a bit as bad as a December as you could probably think of. I'm counting the Motherwell game as December as well. That's the same bracket of games
of
for
course
me.
it was gangs.
Um,
Do you
so
know what's mental? The Aberdeen game was in December. The Aberdeen league game. That feels like it was about 3 months ago.
that's wild, man. But yeah, no. For me, I like Montgomery. I think he's quite a likable guy. He's not like the type of interview that you're desperate to watch, but he's normal, and I think normal says something that we wanted. I think that if he comes good with the system that we're playing, I just don't know if we're going to be the type of team to batter teams. I don't know if it's going to be like a Jack Ross type manager where we're going to dominate possession, we're going to get a goal, and we're just going to keep dominating possession. As I've said before, I don't think that we create bucket loads of chances, but I do think we create good chances. Because even against Hearts, in my opinion, we created a few good chances. A lot of the games we've played in recent weeks, at Bar St Johnston, we've created at least one really good chance in. And I don't think it's coincidence. I think it's due to the style of system that we play. You wait for mistakes to happen, then you capitalise. When teams are sitting with 10 at the back, that Motherwell were doing quite a lot at the time, it is difficult to find a lot of chances at times. So waiting for the one good chance to come, which we took on 2 occasions. But yeah, it's annoying. And the one thing I'll say about Montgomery as well is, in my opinion, we just have to suck it up and accept it. We just need to rock with this manager. We've been on an absolute merry-go-round. I think how many is it? 4 managers in 2 years.
Right,
Um,
yeah, it must be yeah,
yeah,
four.
which is just ridiculous. So for me, we just need to ride it out. If we're somehow floating towards relegation, which I really don't think is going to happen, then conversations can be had. But for me at the moment, we just need to ride the boat. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've not even started fucking building yet. It's the start of the transfer window. Give the guy a chance to breathe and actually bring in a couple of players, and hopefully we'll see an upturn in form.
So if we were to break it down, then Harry, maybe a few categories, and just give me. It's up to you if you want to go pass or fail or rate out of 10.
Yeah,
You
that
do
sounds
it
fun.
for
That
this,
sounds
then
fun.
I'll follow up with it. So, um, performances in general, like, are you happy? What would you say?
That's the difficult one because like performances up until the Aberdeen game, or up until after the Aberdeen game, I'd probably give them like I like the school grade system for lettering, like the
Sure.
American version. I'd probably give them like a B minus, a C plus type, like not overwhelmingly good, but good enough that we'll get results. Is the way I would probably summarize it. But in December, you're probably looking at like C minus, D plus, like not really acceptable, not grinding out results. Bit frustrating because I think the thing is, we've done so well at keeping clean sheets. It's one thing that we were getting battered with. Oh, the defense is terrible, but now it's kind of the flip where we are conceding a few goals here and there, but we're not conceding as much as we were. But now we're not scoring the goals that we were when he first came in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd drop way. I'll give him a C plus, and that's probably the average for me. What about you? If you're on this,
Performance. What's a pass? Anything above a D?
no, I would say probably yeah. C minus and above's probably our pass.
C minus.
Just about scraping it then.
Yeah, like just like um, fine at best, probably. As if it was out of 10, I'd be looking at a 5 or a 6. Performance wise, we've seen some good, we've seen some bad, we've seen a lot of indifferent. I totally agree with what you said earlier on. I still don't think we've seen a 90-minute performance. I think the one thing that I'm struggling with Montgomery is he's very welded to his idea of playing in terms of the structure coming out of the back and the 4-4-2 sort of formation, and it seems to be that he wants a striker to drop in and sort of make up that missing man in midfield, if you like. But I'm yet to see a statement performance that shows you can go back to as a fan and say, well, that's what it looks like. That's what we're going for. If we can get to that level of performance more regularly, then that will bring the results that come with it. I don't think we've seen that yet, really. Even in probably feels in some of the games where we've actually got as close to that are the games where we actually haven't picked up the points. So for half an hour against Motherwell, probably for 90 minutes against Dundee was probably one of our better performances, but you drew the game. Probably Aberdeen at Hampden, again, probably one of our better performances, but you lose the game. Whereas I think one of our worst performances under Nick Montgomery has been Livingston away and Aberdeen at home. And you took 6 points from the games, so I'm kind of struggling with the idea that how do we know that what he's trying to do and seems very stuck to doing is actually going to work? So for me, that's where I would have to land at just passing, because his win ratio, it's sort of 33. He's not lost more games than he's won. And there's been a lot of draws in there that there's and I would. It's difficult because I would say that more of the draws have felt like defeats than the draws that have felt like victories, if that makes sense. You come away from Celtic and Hearts and you go, yeah, they're decent points. But you come away from Dundee at home, Motherwell at home, you're like, fucking hell.
Killie
Like
away,
that,
Ross County at
yeah,
home. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I'm struggling there. What about his results in the bigger games? You know what Hibs fans sort of define as big games, your Aberdeen, Hearts, semi-finals, Old Firms.
Um, well, obviously he's beat Aberdeen, so that's a plus. And then the Hearts game, realistically, I think that was two teams that played pretty poorly. Clark was like, I just want this ball gone, booted it as hard as he could. Shankland did a Shankland. So I think it's harsh to like overly, obviously losing a derby is losing a derby. It's not good enough. It's not acceptable.
Yeah.
But I think overly slating them for it, I think it's a bit much. So and then Celtic draw at home, but then two pumpings away at the Old Firm. Hard to give him more than a C plus again, to be honest. I'll give him a C. Give him a C. I don't think it's been a disaster so far. That's the thing. Lee Johnson came in and he got pumped off Hearts. Like that really wound me up. And then back
Yeah.
to back 3-0s. That's after
Like,
that moment. I don't know if Lee Johnson was ever coming back for me. Like so, yeah.
I'd have to say on the sort of big game metric for me just now, it's an F.
An F. Oof.
Yeah,
Even though an Aberdeen win at home.
he lost them in the game that mattered really. He lost a league. He's lost a League Cup semi-final. He's lost a home derby. We were poor at Tynecastle, but we did get a point out of that. And like you come away from that feeling good, but on the face of it, you've got to say that for the majority of that game, we were outplayed. And he's taken two pumpings in Glasgow that I'm not saying you shouldn't. You don't need to expect to go to Celtic Park and Ibrox, and you expect to compete. I think would be fair. But to say you expect points or whatever, but the League Cup semi-final, to lose that, to lose a home derby, and one that was really quite important in terms of sort of for him as a manager, I think, and ultimately for the league table. You know, you look now, you're 11 points behind Hearts. That was quite a swing based on that game where we won the league. I don't think you can give. I don't think you could say he was passing in terms of league game
Yeah, no,
performance.
that's like the main thing for me. I just think it's the first half of the season. As we've
Mhm.
said, he's not really been able to bring anybody
Yeah.
in. So I was just giving him a C, being honest, just to be kind. Like he's not really. I just don't think it's a big enough sample size. I know we say sample size on this show too often, but like I forgot about the bloody game away at Tynecastle. Like yeah, for me, unless you've played each team like I don't know. I, I just find that it's early days to criticise him for it. I completely get what you're saying. I fully understand why you would say an F. Um, but yeah, but as you said though, even though it was all defeat at Hampden, at least we actually put a good performance. Like under so
Yeah.
many managers will go there and will just collapse and crumble under the pressure. Whereas there, we actually put a yeah. I'm just trying to. I like Montgomery. I'm trying to stick up
No,
for
no,
me.
and this is the
Uh,
thing. Like
yeah,
everything that you've said about him, I do agree with. I find him incredibly boring, which I think is better than what we had previously.
yeah.
Like with Lee Johnson, I watched every interview to see what the hell he was saying. I don't watch Nick Montgomery's pre-match press conferences. I rarely watch his post-match press conferences. But that's mainly because I don't feel like I'm probably missing out on anything that I can't maybe quickly scan on like Patrick McPartland's articles with the Observer or whatever. You know, like all I want to know from them really is who's available, who's not available. What you know, like that's really it.
I
And I think
type in PR generator and what do you
yeah,
call it?
and like that, and that's all he
Manager
does.
answered.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's fine. You know, that's absolutely fine. I've got no problem with that at all. And I just, but yeah, it's just he hasn't got his own players. I totally understand. I think I just would have liked to see a bit more because, and I totally understand what you're saying about pre-season, but he has actually had like 3 international breaks. You know, like that he's cited as good to to work with players and stuff. And I appreciate that we're actually in a position just now where we are sort of losing 4, 5, 6 players at a time, sometimes more if you were to sort of factor in Scotland age group call-ups and stuff. So he's not working with his full complement of players and stuff, but I don't think he's been in the door 2 minutes now. You know, I think we were having similar conversations. Was it maybe where he was just hitting the 50-day mark or something? And at that point, it felt incredibly stupid, really, to think of anything other than that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And maybe just one final point there on the manager then, because we've spoke a lot about and Liam and Greg and Ryan have all given us their opinion as well. What about player sort of development? Do you feel like he is getting more? Have more players improved, or have more players declined in this sort of system and stuff? What would you say?
It's it's frustrating because obviously the attacking players when he first came in, I think Venti scored with like his first like 4 shots when Montgomery got there, so he was clearly getting into good positions. Whereas now you would say Venti, Boyle, um, maybe even Deutsch, in the same vein. Like those are 3 players that were playing pretty well to start the season, and they've all kind of fallen off completely. Whereas the likes of Tavares, we were all wanting him loaned out to a League One or a Championship team. Campbell, as always, had gotten himself written off by having a few bad weeks in a row, and he came back and he turned really good. Uh, and then even the youth players that he's trying to implement in, like I know he kind of used it as an excuse the other day, which was a bit disappointing for me because when he first threw Whitaker in, he said, "Oh, I thought he was the best player available for it." It wasn't like excuses because that's one thing I didn't like about Johnson. He was like, "Oh, we've had to put this player on, we've had to use him, we've had to use that." You've got a squad. Use the squad available. Like, and yeah, I'd probably give him a B minus just because Tavares literally went from zero to probably one of our best players this season, which is hilarious because I don't think anybody actually predicted it from a serious vein. And again, I'm being very generous. I know people are going to hear these numbers or hear these categories that you've said. They're going to be
But
like,
people are going to hear
F
these
minus,
categories.
give him a
People are going to
Z.
hear people are going to hear how you chose to determine this, and my people, I mean Liam and Greg, and they're going to go fucking mental at you. I probably do. I probably would rank somewhere similar to yourself. I do think probably just about improvement like overall improvement of the squad versus players not performing to their max. I would sway slightly towards that we've got more out of Jair Tavares than we've maybe not seen the best of Christian Deutsch. I would maybe say that the improvement in Tavares has been greater than the decline has been of Deutsch in terms of what we'd seen in them. But obviously, I'm not as an accomplished host as you are. I've not got the listener questions in and around it as we've been going, so we've all just sort of rattled through them a little bit just now. But they all seem quite valid to come in here. So a player that you did mention there was Dylan Venti, Kevin Wilson, Parma Ham. There's been a load of questions in about Dylan Venti. Kev said, "How concerned should we be regarding Venti? We've spent a lot of money on a striker that's clearly very talented, but the way we play is wasting his ability." And Parma Ham sort of said the same thing. What position is he playing? Why is he generally so deep on the pitch?
I think he has been played at striker. Like I don't think Montgomery's saying to him, "You're playing in the 10, you're playing attacking midfield." That's just not happening. I think he's noticed when he's came in that Venti's got a really high work rate, and then I think Venti's best game probably was against Celtic at home, where he literally every single time Callum McGregor was in his own half, he couldn't get the ball because Venti was hounding him. But I just think if anything, he's a victim of his own work rate at the moment. Like there was no reason for him to track back and chase that ball that he lost. He'd done it because he didn't want to look bad and he wanted to win the ball back for his team. But by the time he got to 60 minutes yesterday, he was gassed. Like that's the frustration. You just need to find like a good balance in between where you're helping the team, but you're not hindering what you're doing. Like there will definitely be manager instructions that come into it, being like, "We want you to help." Like, but the thing is, it feels like there's a disconnect still between the midfield and the attack. Like even if he is dropping deep,
Well, that's
because there
it,
was a
yeah.
couple of times that Tavares was getting down the wing and he was pinging in brilliant balls. And there was nobody there. Sometimes Abita was putting excellent balls into the box. There was nobody there. That's where you'd expect the likes of a Dylan Venti to actually make his mark on game and get tap-ins from those positions.
Yeah, I'll just before I come in here, I'll bring in a few other questions. So Stephen's asked, or he's more made a point. Sorry, don't understand not changing to a free in midfield. Newell and Levitt would have been freed up if we had a proper number six behind them. Having just two in the middle doesn't get the best out of the pair. Parmaham also said Monty appears to be losing a little bit of faith with his one-dimensional football. Is it too soon to judge him? I think it probably still is a little bit too soon to judge him. He's not, like you say, he's not actually had a window yet. And David Anderson's also said, as is Adam Smith, there'll be a lot of talk about Levitt and Newell playing in a two. Yeah, I think that does tie in with Dylan Venti. I said it earlier. I think Venti is being deployed in a way almost where I think he needs to make up for the man that we are short in the middle of the park. The majority of teams in this league play a 4-5-1, a 5-4-1, a 3-5-2. Like that is the way I think probably more than ever teams are lining up with a 3 or a 5 at the back and packing out the midfield as well. And we are constantly outnumbered in that area. So whether that's Dylan Venti himself is picking up on that, but I'd be surprised by that. I don't think any striker's natural instinct is to go back and help. I would assume that's instruction from the manager, and I think for me, makes more sense when it's Boyle that's up there with him because you would think Boyle's pace you can get in behind quite quick. But it was quite frustrating to see that still happen yesterday when Christian Deutsch is his partner. We by default when Christian Deutsch comes into the team over a Martin Boyle, we aren't as quick on the counter attack. So I think you need to adjust a little bit. You probably do have to get the ball forward a bit quicker and have the two players up there. Venti should be sniffing around Deutsch for flick downs and stuff like that. So that was incredibly frustrating. But I feel like the it's, a, it's like they're the midfield two and it's like they're working. That is for me. They're like that's what's causing it because we're constantly outnumbered in there. It was the same against Hearts. Hearts lined up in the first half, sort of a 3-4-3, and then they changed to a sort of 4-3-3, and they had Bellingham incredibly deep, and in the first half it was Neuenhoff and Denham really high up, and in the second half I think they moved Cochrane into the midfield, and Denham came off, and I felt like our midfield really struggled with that, and because I think it was especially obvious against Hearts. I think Hearts had a lot of joy actually in the centre of the pitch, and we quite struggled in that area, and for me, that is a worry that the manager hasn't even tried to change it. Not even within a game. You know, like that's the thing. For like, he's not made a change away from that system in a game. And for me, at this moment in time, I don't think we have the players to do it. There's a lot of comments coming in about Dylan Levitt not being the signing that we thought he was from Adam, and he gets the ball and passes it straight back, which I think is probably which I think is probably slightly unfair. I think he's quite important to us building from the back, but I understand his point. He says had he actually been here for longer, he'd be on his sell list. Do you think it's the makeup of the midfield that's causing us the issues, or is it actually just the formation?
I think at the moment the only way we get forward against teams is down the wing. Like, when was the last time, apart from like the only way we score goals is either set pieces, is either going down the wing and building chances down the wing, or long balls through the middle. Like, when was the last time we had a passage of play that went all the way through the pitch and then ended up being cut back and tapped into the net? It just doesn't happen. Even when was the last time we created a chance like that?
Well,
Like,
this is the thing, yeah,
at
yeah,
the moment, and for me, people are being like, "Oh, we need to get Jekyll." Like, the thing is, as I said with Jekyll, like I don't like him in a two. Like, I think Jekyll's job should be to be that like kind of destroyer, disruptor, that when other teams are trying to play through us, he needs to be there to stop that happening. But I don't want him to make like 100 passes a game. I don't want him to have the ball very often, and if he does, I want it to be away from him as quick as possible. But when you've got Levitt and you who just won't carry the ball forward and won't drive at players, or very seldom do, you've just got nothing in the middle of the park. So you're essentially just playing in a rectangle. And that's probably one of the reasons why Vent is dropping back so often. But yesterday, how many times did Deutsch touch the ball? Like,
yeah.
I'm not like calling him out for being terrible, but like, product of the system, Deutsch just didn't do anything yesterday.
I thought he
Like,
looked really. I thought he looked. I'll disagree. I thought he looked really effective in that first half hour. Probably unfortunate not to score. A good touch and shot on the finish. Shot on the turn. Sorry, but yeah, like everything else, just drifted out the game entirely. After the first half hour, the one change that I did feel like I seen from Hibs in the second half, I thought in the first half, Newell and Levitt were coming really deep, and there was obviously a decision made that they didn't need to because Motherwell weren't coming, weren't pushing up, and I thought we then quickly moved it in the second half. We got it to the fullbacks quicker. However, the fullbacks had no option because I thought Newell and Levitt were so much higher up the pitch. They were almost up at the halfway line, and then there was probably about 5 yards, and then you had the four forward players in a row, and you're looking at it, and there's just no obvious pass. So I think as fans, we get frustrated with the player on the ball. We get frustrated at David Marshall for being slow on the ball, or you get frustrated at Paul Hanlon for Wild Fish. Any of the more defensive players, or even Levitt and Newell when they play a bit deeper for, going backwards and sidewards. But there's a real distinct gap too often for me between the forward players and the defensive players. And at the end, you're trying to thread a 30-yard pass in between six players because the Motherwell have got three centre halves, four midfielders in front of them, quite tight. Like it makes it nigh on impossible, and it is difficult. But let's finish up with this point that's coming from Scott, Harry. So I think we need to be a little bit more honest with ourselves. Squad is miles off it. How many of our players would get into Hearts or Aberdeen starting lineup? Can't be too many. So tackle that one first. Scott does also say need to give Monty time and the resources to build a proper team capable of playing his system, which I think we both agree with. And I hope that has come across. I know I've been maybe a little bit more critical than you have been, but I certainly wouldn't be advocating for any change in management currently. Maybe a little bit more flexibility from the manager, but we'll see. What do you think though about the actual setup of the team and squad wise, and is there anyone for you that would definitely walk into the Hearts or Aberdeen team?
see, the thing is for me, like, I hate that every single time Hibs are in a bad bit of form, we've got a terrible squad. Like, the season we finished third, we had that terrible stint over January, we were getting pumped at home off Ross County and Livingston. And then we finished third and got to two cup final. Well, a cup semi final, a cup final. Like, that wasn't a terrible squad, but the whole season everybody kept banging on whenever we have a like we've not got a terrible squad. You can say we've got a thin squad. Like, you can say that as soon as we lost three, four players there, we've got not a lot to replace them. We had to put a 16-year-old to come on to start a game, and then we had to bring off a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old off the bench to chase it. I think it's valid to say that we've not got a lot of depth. That's definitely true. But I don't think we've got terrible players across the squad. We
Yeah.
know for a fact that Boyle on his day is a brilliant player. We know Yuan, even though he doesn't perform well for 90 minutes, he's got goals and goal contributions in him at least once a game. We know Venti's definitely got talent. We know Tavares now has proven himself to be a player. Levitt and Newell, people wax lyrical about Newell, so you can't tell me we've got a terrible squad if we've got a player who a lot of players are saying is one of our best midfielders of the 21st century. Like, I'm not being dramatic in the way that people go on about him. Levitt, we know that there's a player in there, even if he's not shown his best form at Hibs. Will Fish, people bang on about as being one of our best centre backs in years. Paul Hanlon's like, I'm not saying we've got an amazing squad. I'm just saying that individually, these players that people talk about, they're not bad. And even Miller, even though he's had a bad month in December, like, he's not a bad player. He's a good player. Obita, even though I'm still kind of I like a beat, and I think he's got a wonderful left foot, but I don't know if that's the main part of his game, which you don't really need on a left back. But I
Okay.
don't think we've got a squad from back to front full of terrible players. I think if you put Hearts, Aberdeen, and Hibs together in a one big squad for a manager to pick from, I think he picks players from all the teams. I don't think it's just going to be all Hearts. Like, I think Hearts are pretty poor. They've got Shankland, who's having an unbelievable season, but I don't think Hearts have got ballers across like that. Neuenhoff, garbage. Devlin, pish. Vargas, even though he's scoring of late, looks donkey. Aberdeen, they've got a bunch of random players that they don't even know how to use.
Well, let's
Like,
be honest, Aberdeen are, and I think they've got a pretty decent squad, but they have
struggled in
been
Europe.
carried to the point that they points total that they have by Miovski. You know,
Yeah.
if it wasn't for him, they would be in a. But uh, for me, Joe Newell probably gets into the other two teams. Yuan should get into the other two teams, which, you know, that brings its own question as to why he's not getting into the Hibs team every week. But I think he would get into both the teams, like, as a certainty. Venti wouldn't. I think it's fair to say that
Ah,
he's
when Miovski and Shankland, you're going to
yeah.
struggle. Yeah.
Boyle probably would. You know, if you were playing a front three, you'd probably have Boyle on the right, Yuan on the left, and then one of the other two. But, you know, and I think after that, it's a toss of a coin, and ultimately, whether it's would they get into their team or not, I think the players ultimately, like you said earlier, they haven't been performing to the levels that we either expect that they can, you know, with a Venti and Levitt, we're sort of expect that they can perform to a level higher than what they are just now, or players that we know can perform to a higher level than maybe what they have been recently. You know, and this is only the last couple of weeks. So Joe Neal, Martin Boyles, Ellie Yuan out with the weekend. You know, there's still definitely there was ultimately a reason he was dropped, but this is where I struggle with the January window as well, because I don't think objectively we are a bad football team. I don't look at our strongest 11 and go, we have glaring holes here, 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 and
Yeah.
here. And as well, the bench obviously against Motherwell was a big, you know, it was probably gave everyone a bit of fright. You know, you go fuck. But off the top of my head, you're probably missing 7 players that would arguably all be on the bench or challenging for first team places, in the sense of like a Wallacott, and then obviously you'd have Stevenson and Jago, Jake Doyle Hayes, Chris Cadden, Martin Boyle, Josh Campbell, Rocky Bashiri, Lewis Miller. I think that would be a full bench. And, you know, you would probably look at that. Oh, and Adam Lafondra as well. So if that was your bench, you'd probably go, all right, well, you could bring Lafondra on, you could bring Boyle on, Campbell could maybe be a goal. You know, if we've got issues at fullback, Stevenson can come on, or okay, Whitaker could come on, or Cadden could come. You know, like, so we are missing a lot of bodies right now, which probably, as fans, maybe even us on the podcast, well, we maybe haven't given enough credit to. Maybe because a lot of them have been longer term as well. But look, we'll see how it goes. Shall we wrap it there? I think we call that a pod. We'll be back on Monday with a sort of transfer window look ahead. Hopefully, I look back. Maybe there'll been some action and over the weekend. And yeah, and then we will be one episode away from episode 200, which will be a very good one. There's something special coming for episode 200, which we are very much looking forward to. So that's what you've got coming in the next couple of weeks. Well, there is no Hibs action. Cheers.
Bye.